former colleagues and teachers I know that are teaching right now. I just so firmly believe this tool is such a game changer for anybody in education that we really are doing this series for you.
What we were seeing here is how YouScience is really modernizing career readiness and how they help people to discover what we're actually capable of.
These types of discoveries that students have about themselves should direct the course offerings, should direct the opportunities, should direct the experiences that students have in high school.
There's so much talent out there that doesn't even know they're talented. Some people look at a pipeline like a very bad connotation, and I want to make it very clear here that pipeline sets people free. So we're not pigeonholing students here. And just saying, oh, we're going to build you for work and that's it. No, man, we're freeing people.
You're listening to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Hostrawser and Alli Dahl.
Welcome back to the Disrupt Education Podcast. I'm Peter Hostrawser here with Alli Dahl. How are you, Alli? What's going on?
I'm like kind of sad, which isn't how I normally start, but I'm like sad that this series is ending. And so it's like I'm like we're like recording it right now. We're just getting started, but I know as soon as we're like done recording, it's like it feels like the end of an era. In some ways, like yes, 6-part series with YouScience. Like we've had such an awesome time exploring this amazing platform and like hearing all these awesome stories and having all these awesome guests. But I was kind of feeling like I needed to do a little dedication to all of my former students. In just that, like, I wish I'd had this tool when I was teaching. And if any of my former students listen to this podcast, I know some of you, we are connected professionally on LinkedIn and we stay in touch and everything. And so if you're listening to this and you're feeling like you don't know what your next step is, or you want to explore YouScience, I will get you connected. We will get you connected with YouScience aptitudes and career, discovery, like all of that, because I just think like former colleagues and teachers I know that are teaching right now, like I just so firmly believe this tool is such a game changer for anybody in education that like we really are doing this series for you. And it just felt like I needed to open this one up. And like, if you haven't listened to any of the other episodes, like you got to go back and rewind because it's so good. And it's not like any other series we've done previously.
Right. Yeah, I mean it does. It feels really big. 6 episodes. We're on our 6th year over the series. We had a great partnership with YouScience, which by the way is hilarious. I think that we're like kind of like we did YouScience. You and I actually did it and worked with YouScience.com. We were just talking right before we started recording about I've have 3 or 4 of my people that I know. They're diving in. My daughter's diving in, so it's really cool. And really, what we were seeing here is how YouScience is really modernizing career readiness. Really looking at that exposure gap. That's kind of where we started, and how they help people in general. I mean, we're looking at students, but I'll be honest, like in my own, at my seasoned age, as I've joked about all this series, to discover what we're actually capable of. And I think that's really cool. It's that aptitude part, that discovery and education that adds purpose, that goes all the way back to previous episodes in series with like Scott Carr and Christy Valesky, a lot of different things. We went from state level to real-time coaching, and really kind of met some incredible educators across the entire way. So like you said, Alli, if you haven't heard this, if this is like, oh wait, I just picked this up, you got to go back 5 episodes and start there with Jason Van Nuss.
Yes. So we started like this whole series, with I would consider like pretty simple question, like, what if students could just like stop guessing like who they are and like have some real data backing them up. Um, I I think it would be such a leveler. And Jason said it, YouScience is the ultimate field leveler. And we saw students, we saw teachers, we saw district leaders bring that question to life. And I think, you know, it's just when a student realizes like I can do this is a pathway, this is an option I never considered or I never knew was possible. That's where everything like connects for us, like with the Disrupt Education podcast, because we don't want to see disengaged students. We don't want to see like a pipeline just crumble. And so yeah, I think for me, the turning point in the series was like Edson, the CEO of YouScience. No surprise there, but he kind of really showed us how to turn disengagement into purpose. And I mean, like all of our episodes did that, but that one was particularly powerful there. So today we're just like putting all of that together into this finale. Like I said, it's kind of making me sad because it's the end, but we're going to reflect, we're going to connect, and we're going to look at, like what happens when education connects and meets with aptitude.
Yeah. And that quote actually from CEO Edson was because when we align learning to who students really are and not who we think they should be, everything changes. And I feel like that this is that whole series. So let's dive in. We started off with basically we started from awareness to action, closing the gap with purpose. Jason Van Nuss. Well, I love Jason.
Love
He's so
Jason.
passionate. He calls himself the gentle disruptor, but I really think like he's just like the directive disruptor. I don't know how else to say it. So, but we started with basically, students can't be interested in what they've never been exposed to.
Mhm.
And let's just start there. Let's start unpacking that. Where do you want to go with Jason after he's like, hey, guess what? Can't be interested if you don't know what to be interested in or never seen it.
I know. I could pull so many quotes from Jason's episode right now, but like honestly, what I was just thinking about is actually something that Edson said, and it fits perfectly in here. And he said that like 80% of students are preparing themselves for 20% of the jobs.
Mhm.
And it's like kids and I think this was on this series, but if it wasn't, it was in another conversation with Jason, is that like kids when they're like 5 years old or 6 years old, like kindergarten, first grade, if they do like kind of a first resume type of thing, it was Jason.
Mhm.
They end up writing about things that they've seen. So that's like a policeman, a teacher, a doctor, like though the mail, like a mail carrier, because those are people that they see. And and then yes, you do get exposed to more careers as you kind of go through, but it still kind of filters down to like 20% of fields. But there, as we've seen in this series, there's like such an exposure gap.
Mhm.
Like there's so many fields that like transportation, logistics, health science, I ended up like getting exposed to in college, but I wasn't aware of it before then, right? Like, but these are high demand careers that if I didn't know about it and I was very tuned in school, right? Imagine the, what is it? Oh, 66% of students are disengaged in education. So paid attention. What are you missing, right? Like in just the current practice. So I would just say that it really does matter what we're spending our time in school doing. And in particular, it matters with like not so much the standards or like checking all the boxes and objectives and like what you wrote on the board, but like what is outside of those walls. And I will be the first to admit, I did a poor job of this when I was in education. You don't know what you don't know. We're not blaming educators or anybody in the education system for not doing this work. But like once you've been exposed to a tool that could literally level up every single person in the education system, including students, to have career connected learning, and they can be ready for whatever their next step is. It literally helps you with work, with life, with social relationships. It tells you what you're good at in like so many more areas than just school. I can't imagine a more powerful tool to help transform a system that needs it more than like I can even imagine. The more I learn about it, the more I realize like how impactful it can be. And yeah.
I know I like that, and I can sense the passion behind you because a lot of people have that behind your words about like saying, "Man, I wish I had that in school." I mean, I of course, right? It's most of it is that clarity or things that oh, I didn't even know about this. This existed, or I only knew about this after I paid a ginormous amount into college or post secondary education, and we're going to get there. But just it's always been interests, right? I'm interested in, and just like you said, you can only be interested in things that you know about that are in your world until we start to pull things in to people's worlds and then let them show like themselves and what they're apt at, and then how these connect to a broader space in the work world and in the basically in the value world where you bring value, and I really like that. So I really feel like you know that that connectedness is missing for lots of students, right? Because that 80-20 thing that you were just talking about, that a lot of people said, but that Edson said the best is 80% of the students are going for 20% of the jobs. Well, that's because everybody knows those 20%. And then even some people don't know those 20%. And that's where you start to get bigger and bigger gaps. And, this whole podcast we started about asking students how they would change school. And, what they were really describing, even if they didn't know it, was kind of an exposure gap. They were just like, well, now I see this. And, they were describing things. So I think that's where kind of we started this entire series. And then basically, I love how we started to change it into purpose into that second episode. And Jason does a great job of this. I really like this because this is such a way to just connect those two. If you're developing students to leave your community, you're funding the competition. So basically, what YouScience, and we saw this coming up in not this second episode that we're now reviewing, but the third one, but it builds programs around your own talent, right? And here's one
Mhm.
thing that I want to say, because I know that I put a lot of things out on LinkedIn, and I have some unpopular posts that create some I would say discussion, right? Maybe heated discussion. I
Mhm.
really like that. And it's not to say one way is the right way or one way is the wrong way. It's get people really talking about, okay, so where students are right now without a gap, with a gap and not understanding. But what if, a talent pipeline isn't a pipeline that goes into to an end nowhere. It actually frees people into the world, understanding their talents, understanding their aptitudes. And that's kind of where Jason kind of struck a nerve a little bit. And I actually wrote about that on LinkedIn about a month back. And it got some things going here. And that's where you start to say, purpose of
Mhm.
education, and that's where we're going to in the second episode. Hey everyone, this episode of Disrupt Education is powered by YouScience, and they're all about making every student connected and ready for what's next.
Yeah, if we really want students prepared for life after high school, they've got to connect what they're learning in the classroom to real careers.
Through aptitude discovery, industry recognized certifications, and real connections with employers, students start to see what's actually possible, not just what's on a checklist.
And let's not forget, for educators, YouScience gives us the tools to build those connections for every student at scale. That's the foundation of a truly career ready learner.
Check it out at uscience.com/disrupt education podcast.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to nothing else in the second episode, even though it's fire from beginning to end, the the story about the student, Jason's student, who wanted to be a pilot, and like, in Jason's program, they couldn't like put him in pilot school. But he used YouScience aptitudes and his results from the assessments. And this kid started his own, like, uh not my it like, as a traveling car detailing business with
Hmm.
an app and everything. And he's making probably, definitely more than I did when I was teaching full time. And a lot of educators like business, and he's, what, 16, 17 years
Hmm.
old. And um that business model, like, he learned that he was like, had all these entrepreneurial skills innately as his aptitudes, and like saw that and like jumped, and then is using that to fund pilot school for himself, right? And like his other passions. And I think what would have unlocked for me, you have to make this personal, right? Like,
Hmm.
me and you filter this internally, and anybody listening to this, like, I want you to question, like, what would this have changed for me if I'd had these results at 16 or even younger, but 16, 17-year old? It's like, it's such a crucial time in your life, society wise, culturally. We've just deemed when you turn 18, like, you need to make a decision. I know me and you are advocates of like purpose, like for the next step,
Hmm.
and like not just a one track fits all. And I think I've never seen, and in my whole education career, I've been exposed to plenty of ed tech, and then certainly podcasting with you and being in this space. And I have never seen a tool that uh, does a better job for career connected readiness. And like, from knowing what you're apt at to then like exposing you, right, to like what your interests and aptitude, and like, or both, neither, one or the other, could explore, and then helping you get there, right? Like, I I think everybody listening to this episode has to sit with, what would that change for me now? And what would that change for me if I was in high school? I, because if you do that, you're going to be like, I need to take it. I need to see. I need to do it, because that's what happened to us this spring. Like,
Hmm.
this was a very like, we just explored this with purpose, me and you. We
Hmm.
leaned in when Jason was like, this is the only paid, like, uh ed tech that I use. And we're both like, what, Jason? You use everything else, you make everything else free 99. So what's different? And you know, I, when we talked about YouScience is like the X on the map. I was
Hmm.
like, I don't know,
Yeah.
it was just a good analogy for me. And I felt like in high school, everyone was like deeply interested in like, Allie, what are you gonna do? Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I did feel like I was digging holes. If you've ever read
Hmm.
the book Holes, it's a great book.
Yeah. Great
And
book,
oh man,
man.
like, okay, if you haven't read the book, I'm not gonna give it away, but they do dig holes every day,
Yeah.
okay? And it's like a 6 foot by 6 foot, like, diameter, and they're digging for something, but they don't even know what. Like, the kids don't know what they're digging for. Okay. The whole book is around like what they're digging for. That's not the point that I'm trying to get you here. But like, imagine those kids had YouScience, and YouScience was like, here's the hole you need to dig. Instead of digging a hole every day for the next 4 years to figure out maybe what you want to do, you could just like, here is a map, and all these holes you're going to dig are going to help you get to the hole that like really is for you. It's purposeful, it's
Hmm.
intentional, you're not going to feel like you're wasting your time. The hole will have meaning for you because it's combining your skill sets and everything. So I I got a lot to say about that, but
I love the fact that you actually one-upped in that episode, like you one-upped yourself. That X on the map was killer. It was like perfect. It like kind of paused Jason, and then now you went to the book holes. I'm like, wow, like he's not even here to talk about it, but he'll listen to it. But that you're exactly right. I mean, that's really what we're doing is we're starting to take a look at clarity and purpose, right? And I it comes up all the time. A lot of people, a driver for this could be post-secondary education costs, right? You've got, as Jason said, college is the one of the most the world's most expensive laboratory because, and we're borrowing money to send people to see. Okay, well, we'll see what you get, and we'll talk about Edson and how he said a couple of things about, well, my education until this point in my path doesn't matter because you'll get that when da 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 da. Right. So we're actually stifling curiosity and purpose. And that's what I really like, because if we don't connect that learning purpose and community, we're basically, there's so much talent out there that doesn't even know they're talented. And again, I want to go back to that talent pipeline, right? Some people look at a pipeline like a very bad connotation. And I want to make it very clear here that pipeline sets people free. It gets people more curious, right? It doesn't mean you have to go to this sort of business, even if you didn't know about it and you have to stay in it. What happens is, think about it. When you're really good at something, or you
Mhm.
understand that you're apt at something and you're interested in something, you get curious and see how far different angles you can take it, right? That's there's so many studies out there that happens. So we're not pigeonholing students here. And just saying, oh, we're going to build you for work and that's it. No, man, we're freeing people. We're allowing them to see even further beyond just the typical doctor, lawyer, nurse, teacher, whatever. There's so much more. And by the way, YouScience helps that kind of throw that and update constantly, because that is changing so rapidly in the world today. So I that and Jason gets a little, like, I love him on edge. He gets a little on edge in these first two ones, and he gets you fired up for systemic change. Like, what are we going to do? Who needs to know who the leaders are doing this, and what are they doing? And then that's when we ran into Shannon and Katie from Montgomery County. And that is the systemic change. This is episode 3. Let's go into
Mhm.
these two wonderful ladies, educators. I would almost call them innovators of really career navigation, I guess.
Mhm.
She
Mhm.
was a career navigator. Is that what her title was? Shannon's title?
Oh,
Yeah.
Katie, yeah. I mean,
Or Katie, yeah.
so I won't give the book holes away, but I will give episode 3 away, in that like they're doing legacy work.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to listen to the whole episode to like really understand that. And they're doing legacy work, and the only way, like, I that they're able to do it is by partnering with YouScience. Just like I feel like this series is legacy work for us in
Yeah.
a lot of ways, because when we think about the lifespan of the Disrupt Education podcast, we're always trying to share stories that can really help people in education today, right now. You listening to this, you could pause, you could go to the show notes, and you could click the link that's in the show notes, YouScience, and you could learn more, and you could do your aptitude assessments today, or for whoever you're thinking of that needs it today,
Yep.
and it could do legacy work. It could totally change someone's life. And so we when we stumble upon that kind of thing, we want to partner with that and disrupt education, hopefully. And so Shannon and Katie, um they're out of Ohio, and it's cool to see they've been using YouScience for 7 years, and they'll be the first to say, like, YouScience came before the transformation.
Mhm.
Like, they didn't know how transformative it was going to be. And so it's cool to see like where it started, and like versus where it is now. But it's a learning curve when you're implementing something and they're in a huge district. I think it was like over 40,000 kids or 60,000 kids. Like they oversee like counties worth
Mhm.
of kids. Well, that is a lot of conversations. And it's not just the students. Like, great, okay, you could give all of these kids this assessment, but then like if you don't do anything with it, like it just stays there, right? So they really talked about like how it has kind of snowballed and how they've used Katie and other career navigators, which is definitely the coolest like title
Right.
ever. Um to to not only um like help have kids take the assessments, but then like do stuff with it.
Mhm.
And they really showed us what career navigation should be and kind of like what it shouldn't be. But it's like again, it's like where do we want to put our resources in school? Like, do we want our resources in school into more tests, more like uh man, ceremonies, more uh I'm trying to think of like I don't want to take away from what schools are doing, but it's like where you put the money and the funding really
Right.
does affect the outcomes that you get. And so, and like the time, right? Our most valuable resource is time. And so it's like, in my opinion, one of the most valuable ways we can use our time in school is to help students figure out their next step beyond it. Like we need to stop thinking that like, oh, we have them in this building, so we can just like do what we want with their time and it doesn't really matter what happens afterwards. Like that's honestly one of the reasons this whole series came about is because Abby, who is on episode 5, but it was her summer series and she was talking about how she just felt dropped from her college with like once they basically just want to place you and they're a business, right? They want their own statistics. They want to place you within 6 months so they can check the box. And I know there are people in that system that want more than that, but I'm just saying, like, as a whole, like, you can't look at it that way because then your purpose isn't really about helping students with the next step. It's just like checking the box so that you can get the accolade that you want. So it's like, what is the outcome you want? Is
Mhm.
the outcome you want is to really help students make the best choice for themselves? Or is it like what they're doing in Ohio and other places like with YouScience? Or do you just want to give students the diploma and say good luck?
Yeah. Yeah, it is how do you attach so traditionally it was like we gave you the academics and I talk to Brett my colleague about this all the time like and then when you got your diploma it was like okay go figure it out and that became a problem. I think you see with a lot of uh, uh, people who are not in areas where they may be apt at or they're not really happy at it. You have 70%. I just read a study, 70% of secondary students want some sort of career preparation. That's high school, folks. So and we're also looking at like colleges and universities. They do a really good job with academics. There's nothing wrong with that, but they really many of them really start to lag in this. What is this career or this different other opportunity in being a professional and attaching your academics to your professional self? And Shannon's always said it there in the episode. There's a talent gap. There's not a talent gap. There's an opportunity gap, and that opportunity gap has been discussed, studied, across all different kinds of schools and such. But really, we want people to see what I'm previewing a little bit of the next podcast, but see what they're learning and be able to attach it to something that they're apt at, they're interested in, and then you start to get that buy-in. But what I liked what Katie and Shannon were doing was really Shannon was talking about we can really build areas of communities and really see what our students are good at, and then talk to our community about let's pull talent and opportunity in our communities together on grand scales And it was just like next step, mind-blowing stuff. I think that's and everything started. I mean, she was talking to like when she was in Georgia, talking to the governor there, and you're talking about like ways that you really can get information and and connect like a lot here. And it all starts with basically the student going through a YouScience aptitude and then that data going out. It's not a push-pull thing.
Hmm.
It's basically kind of a yes and thing, I would think. So it's very interesting the way that they describe the scaling process of this. And it didn't come right away, right? And I
Mm-mm.
wrote it again. You've said that best with, and I always go back to Scott Carr because he was kind of at that level. But what Shannon and Katie were saying is it takes some time, but that then that really makes that certification, that diploma, that whatever academic really become the next step. It's not like just the destination. I just got the diploma and that's it. You really now have something to go deeper into.
Yes, I mean, if you want kids engaged in school, right? So they like 70%, 72% of graduates, high school graduates, said they didn't feel prepared for life after high school. What? That's from that's from like 2024, 2025. Okay, this isn't like, oh, old data. Uh and I mean, pair that with, okay, so that's like 3 out of 4 students almost. Then you've got 35% of high school grads pursuing 4-year degrees, and that's down from 55%. Right. And Jason has a whole article on this, and it's like he doesn't like the term college and career readiness because like the statistics don't line up. Because and I've asked so many young people recently, right? Like even before doing this, this has been like a conversation I've had all year with young people. And not that I share all of this all the time, but I have like close to 30 nieces and nephews. Okay. So, and they are all under the age of like 27. So they're like Gen Z or Gen Alpha.
Hmm.
So like a lot of young people who are, and the majority of them are still like in high school or like early college, or young people who are not choosing college. And I know this is just like one family system. However, the conversation is so different now in that like they don't believe in college, the majority of them, or that it will prepare them for what their next step because they don't even know what it is. I,
Yeah.
I don't even like I want that to just like hang there for the listeners. Is just like the conversation around what is the purpose of school. It maybe 10, 15 years ago, and however long the conversation has been having, it's been more directed from adults down. But
Hmm.
it has caught fire with the young people, and it's now at like a meeting point, right?
Hmm.
The kids are questioning it, the adults are questioning it. And so that's where like the real opportunity is this like how can we help students see the light? Because if they feel like they know who they are, they know what they're apt at, then they're going to be more engaged in school and want to find purpose in their learning for that next step. It becomes clear. The Katie said that, like when a
Hmm.
student finally sees the light, they can connect what they're good at to what's possible. She sees that in her daily job. I just think that would be such a great job. If anyone's hiring for career navigator, I think I might be up my alley. Like just a cool, like what a privilege, right?
Yeah.
Because that's where I think we could really reinvest our time in education. And I mean, I'm not going to like give this away completely, but at the same time in this series we kind of realize it's like these types of discoveries that students have about themselves should direct the course offerings, should direct the opportunities, should direct the experiences that students have in high school, because at that point in their career, you and I believe, are on the same page with like they don't need so much academics. We
Hmm.
have AI, we have the internet, we have all this stuff. If you want to learn something, all the information is out there. It's just a matter of like milling that and like condensing it down into the areas that you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can
It,
shift.
going from the books to experience, right? And I think that's one thing. I think that's a great argument with AI, right? And I always have this conversation as well. And I've kind of read between the lines with Shannon and Katie when we were on that episode was you look, when everything becomes automated in a certain sense, that's basically going to even create more responsibility for us to go out and experience things and connect on the human side of things. And before we go into our CEO and founder, episode 4, I really do like how Shannon took a hard line in the episode, basically saying, you know what, we've been lied to. You can't be anything that you want to be. And she gave that great story about how she wanted to be a pilot in the Navy and fly for the Blue Angels, right? But she figured out that she could build that YouScience can help people build themselves what they're built to be.
Mhm.
And I really like that. I mean, it's such a kind of a bummer in one sense, but it's also very freeing in another. It's actually taking your mind off of something that you literally cannot do, right?
Mhm.
And I know we
Mhm.
like the happy endings and the Disney and all that, right? But like this is something that now, okay, now let's focus on what you can do. And going into Edson Barton's story, basically how he was a disengaged learner and he started talking, thinking to himself like, what is it like? Well, I think I have something, but as a student, but it doesn't really connect, or I don't really, understand it. And he did come out and say every student has genius, but most don't know where they apply it, and so we're not really preparing for life or preparing for school, right? And wait a minute, it, you get so far, and I remember him saying in that episode, you get to an MBA, like oh, when you get to the MBA, they'll teach you that, but why? Like the world is moving faster now. There's more information. There's more opportunities out there for our students, and I really like the way that he took like I'm interested in that, right? Like every kid, okay, for me, I'm interested in playing in the NFL. I'm like 6 years old, right? Yeah, right. And that's what he described as a mirror, kind of a distorted one. But I didn't know aptitudes. I didn't know what these things were. But they're kind of the window, and they can show you who you truly are and where your strengths can take you along with your interests. And that's where we started with Edson kind of telling his story.
Yes. I loved the mirror analogy because uh I think, you know, for those of us who are good, we're good at school, and we just prepared for school just to go back to school. And that mirror works really well for that percentage of students. Like I, and it's interesting because like my parents were both educators. My mom was special ed, and my dad, he he did a lot of different things, but he ended the last like 15 years of his career doing like tech ed and physics and engineering and whatnot when I was already like done with high school. Like is
Mhm.
when I like my dad's like teaching engineering courses and I'm like I would have taken those. It's just like missed me. But what's interesting about the mirror analogy is, I was always told like, oh, you're really good at math and science, and I like loved math and science too, so there was an interest and I was apt at it. Great. And then that mirror led me to actually I was pre-dental in college up until like second semester of my junior year. And it was all these mirrors telling me like you'd be a really good dentist, like you're good at math and science. And in dentistry, there is a lot of spatial uh and like viewing the mouth in lots of different orientations.
Mhm.
And guess what? I am not very apt at that part. And guess when I learned it? When I had to take a dental aptitude test that had the math section, aced it. The the science section, aced it, right? Like all the spatial awareness section, below average. And like, but to me, of all of the aptitudes that were relevant to dentistry, and like, what are you going to be doing day in and day out? And like, I'm sure it's a skill you can learn, but like, why was that not shown to me? And I could have avoided a lot of mirrors.
Yeah.
Like, that hit really hard for me because, and like, I think about that, aptitudes are the windows. There could have, yes, math and science, and the window would have been like engineering for me, which we've talked about on this, but that was never explored because it was just people, it was like the self-fulfilling prophecy of just
Mhm.
math and science. And like, I didn't want to be a doctor, but I loved the dental office for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I do have a whole history of like braces and expanders and stuff, so it's probably like why, but yeah, it's interesting because Edson, you know, really talked about, like, I was really engaged because I felt like I understood why I was learning something. But I
Yeah.
hit a wall when I like really came across this aspect of dentistry that I realized was like the main part, and I was
Yeah.
really bad at it. And then
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't even like it. Right. So I hit a ginormous wall when I was 21 years old. I've now done 15 years of school. 15, Peter. And like, we look at
Mhm.
like high school to college, we're looking at 6.5 to have been preparing for something that I wasn't even apt at.
Yeah.
Could I have done it? Are there dentists that like taught themselves those skills? Absolutely. I did a hard stop and reevaluated my life. But and I luckily like pivoted into an area and found teaching chemistry and everything. And so it's not like I lost those years, so to speak, because I still needed to go to college. But like, for how many students do they hit a wall in college and then they
Yeah.
don't graduate and they switch majors?
Yeah.
Like, YouScience has all the stats on this, but it's
Yeah.
like, so w- kids are asking these questions because they don't want stories like mine or like other people that have hit these walls, and they're like, it's not worth it now. It's so expensive to find
Yeah.
yourself in college.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. And so that's where, you know, if you know you're apt at something and you're interested in it, then there's not a lot of like question marks, or you're probably not going to hit the wall. And
Mhm.
that's where I think it disrupts education. I would have a totally different path. Like, if you haven't heard that in this series, Allie would have had a totally different path had YouScience existed when I was in high school. And I think that's why I'm like dedicating to this to all the students who already are through school, all the teachers, like, they were really good at school, they did school really well, or they didn't find a path. Like, this series is for you because it really does change
Yeah.
if you have it.
Yeah, 100%. I think during this episode, you brought it up here a little bit, but like w one of the things that w while Edson was talking about, what students are understanding why they're learning something, and then they can connect it to their future, and all this is all before they even get to that, like they understand their aptitude and their interest, right? And we'll go over that in the next episode that we're going to reflect here in a minute, but. One thing that I was thinking about during this entire podcast with Edson was the old weed out classes at college, right? Like, why are we doing that in college? Why are colleges boasting that, or people boasting about, oh, yeah, I got through the weed out class? Well, now those weed out classes cost thousands of dollars, and students then are lost afterwards because they thought they were interested in something and then it's gone. And then
Mhm.
just like you were saying, students are like, dropping out, or they're just disengaged, and they just go into the workforce, or and there is talent there, and that's what I was thinking about, because the entire mission of our podcast is, like you said, is we're just basically helping people, schools, educators, learners connect purpose, passion, and pathway. Like, how do you connect all those things? And just you know it to me, I was getting angry at the classes that were the weed out classes.
Mhm.
There's no reason we should have to wait until college, or even, at any time. We should have the opportunity, everybody should have the opportunity to really test out something before they have to throw a lot of cash at it. And that's, it's not really throwing the entire system out. It's really just kind of writing it differently. So how can we help this connection happen, or not connection occur, with clarity in the systems that we are working in right now at a very low or no cost, right? And
Mhm.
I think that's what Edson really explained in his podcast. He got so many great quotes in there as well. I mean, I'll tell you what, I'm not as eloquent as a speaker as Edson. But again, like, I think one of the things is we have to stop telling kids to wait until college to learn. And then, when they're capable now, and we know they're capable now because of what YouScience can kind of pull out, that data of aptitude and interest, and then we're going to go all the way in and see what it can do at the tip of the iceberg, because that's what we did in the next episode. But once we do that, and again, he goes back, it's very powerful. That changes everything. And I really appreciate Edson for taking the time and out of his extremely busy schedule to speak with us on that episode. But then I mean, all these episodes are great. I really
Yeah.
was interested in seeing it in action. And we had Abby, who just graduated from university, was one of the Privs students back in the day. And it was very interesting because she has just graduated.
Mhm.
And she shared a little bit, and Abby, if you're listening to this episode, thank you so much, because you put it out there, and you're not alone. I think we know that,
Yeah.
but she started taking a look at, she did the assessment, and then Jason walked us through it. That's an episode. I know at the beginning of that episode, like, you got to watch that episode. So you hit
Yeah.
that up on YouTube or Spotify or anywhere on a podcast so you can watch it,
Yep.
because there's so much there. But man, that was a real time coaching happening there, Allie.
I mean, Jason did that for us as well, and that's really the you can throw data at anybody. Like, right? I mean, and people love learning about themselves. They love, Myers-Briggs. They love all these like, numerology things, horoscopes back in the day, whatever it was. You know what I'm saying? Like, um, now we can have data with purpose, with real science behind it. And the thing that I love about like how Jason works with YouScience and how a lot of practitioners who work with YouScience, I mean, like, look at Katie and Shannon. Like, they have career navigators whose job is really to like bring the data to life, right? It's like you have to bring it off the page. And that's what's so powerful about YouScience is it's very visual. And episode 5, like, you know, Jason is showing Abby how to use it. And I'm sure you could do this on your own, but it's like just like in teaching, like kids can learn chemistry on their own. Like they could. It's totally possible. But to have someone like take it off the page and like show you what to highlight, what to bold, what to underline, what to italicize, like there's something about real-time coaching, real-time uh being in the moment with someone. Like if you're listening to this podcast in real time, you take it off of 2x, you go back to just normal 1x speed, okay? Right? We're going to be talking a little bit slower if you have it on 1x, but there is something powerful about like the normal cadence of something. Like your brain wires things differently. And I do believe that's at the heart of what YouScience is about. Like Jason says that from episode 1, like they're a company about people, and like ed tech is not known for that, but like YouScience is, and that's one of the many reasons they're just so different. But like they are working, and Edson talked about this, is like how does the tool get even better because they do have so much data and so much like how do we personalize it? How do we use AI to even like level up our results? But at the bottom line, you still need that connection. You
Hmm.
still
Yep.
need somebody to talk you through stuff and help you navigate it. And so that episode is really powerful because we did that in real time with Abby. She didn't even look at her results before then. She had taken the assessments, she had done everything, but she had not gone in and like looked at it at
Hmm.
all. So it's all raw. And right, like I'm dedicating this episode to that, but like it was very important to me for this series to help like an individual um hopefully have some next steps.
Yeah.
That was like really, really a top of my list for this whole thing is like, what does it look like for someone? And so thankful Abby like came on and did that. And then Jason for leading it because he really showed us how it's different than any other career like tool,
Hmm.
career like how to take like what you who you are and apply that to the world we live in.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible, like what you can see in that episode and like visually how YouScience like does it. Because there are aspects of like I can use today, you can use today.
Hmm.
It's so cool. It's just it's she was lighting up
Yeah.
um and just talking to me afterwards about it. Like, it's a lot in
It
real
is a
time.
lot. Yeah. Yeah.
You got to digest it.
Did
But
did you
yeah,
go back into yours like after that episode? I did, and I
yes.
started playing more because I just felt like, well, let me backtrack just a minute. Like, we've all done surveys, and you really are surveyed to all ends of the earth when you are in high school. Just to let you know, like I don't know if anybody's in secondary education right now, but there are so many surveys, and none of them are like in my opinion, the ones that I've seen are just very like surface level, checkbox, checkbox, da da da. But one thing that Abby did say is just like, with YouScience, it felt like puzzles and games, and you can't game the system, which that was something that Jason said as well. And one thing that was really cool is like you actually want to finish, which
Yeah.
I felt the same way when I did it. But the other thing I wanted to kind of throw out there, just like what you said, is, and why we went back into ours is because this is the tip of the iceberg. This is not like, okay, it's going to give you the magic bullet. No, you've got to interact with this and or bring somebody in with you to interact with it. And you have to like, make decisions within it to really kind of give you even more clarity. And Abby was a little bit, I guess, older than the people that usually do it. I can tell you, I'm way older than the people who usually do it. But she did find some clarity. Like she made some of the same choices that she had, that she had made going down her path. Yet it was only giving her a narrow set of careers. And I think Jason kind of came back on that. Like tools actually show you where you are now and maybe a roadmap to where you can be. One of the most eye-opening things, and everybody I show this to, even on mine, is the difference between your interests and aptitudes on those lines, where it
Yes.
really is like, ooh, that's a great match aptitude-wise, but my interest is way off on that one, or it just doesn't match me on certain pieces of it, which is super eye-opening. It is super eye-opening, and I mean, come on, Ellie, it made me like a director producer, and I've been directing and producing a podcast for 10 years. So, but that was some of the eye-opening pieces on that because there is work. Like I know maybe we should do an episode later on like with Abby and after she's gone deeper into it because that was just the tip of the iceberg and there was so much information to digest.
Yeah.
And I just love that episode. We went into that not we had no expectations, didn't know what was going to happen, and we just did it. And
Yep.
I think we kind of learned a lot of takeaways that the entire series we've been talking about. So, what are some of the big lessons from this entire series that the Priv took away? I got to throw the Priv out there. For those who don't know, that was what Abby called her in high school years ago.
Yes, I had that was the nickname. Well, I mean, if if we're kind of like looking at this as the map, right? Like thinking about my holes analogy and the X marks the spot, right? There are some steps, right? So you you have this great, and in theory, you have this great uh educational system that exposes you and makes you aware of things you could do. And that awareness then shuffles back into like your purpose, your personal purpose.
Mhm.
And that like will then cycle back into readiness and like
Yeah.
desire to learn uh and just wanting to be a learner, right? Like Edson said, like everybody wants to learn. He said it better than that, but the gist of it is that like right now, if everybody knows what they're apt at, then there's kind of like more equity there because we aren't focused on necessarily what kids can't do. Instead, we're focused on what they can do and what they could do more of. And I would think that that cycle is really, really powerful in fueling uh, a community, a community for that is connected for like life.
Mhm.
And people would want to like if everybody is bought into that system, right? And I think it's particularly important, and we said this in other episodes, but the local regional aspect of YouScience is really important here. And Jason will be the first to talk about like you know get kids in careers that are already in your community. Otherwise, you're funding the competition. But like it can be a really, really, really impactful loop to have you science drive a lot of that. Like let AI and let an algorithm and let a tool do a lot of the heavy lifting here and just train people on it to then like the whole system on it in order to create that really, really beautiful loop that's kind of like, the whole life cycle, water cycle, nitrogen cycle, like everything has its piece and it's important you understand all the pieces because it fulfills the full cycle. So those are some of the big key takeaways for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're spot on. I mean, like you said, like I really like the equity part of this, the aptitudes, creating equity, really understanding, and I know I'm saying a lot of the same things that you just said, but I just kind of wanted to kind of lean into, this is not just interest. And I love Jason's like, everybody's taking this class because I want to get a prom date. And that class is so funny, but it's so true. Like, I have friends who go there, and so I'm going to go there. And I don't really know me, but it's just where everybody else is taking that class. And maybe there's a cool teacher like the Priv in there, right? But there's all these things, but we really, really are looking at what to find out how kids are naturally wired to do well along with those interests. And this took us all the way through that. And what I really like, and this came up so many times, is really just stop asking kids what they want to be and really kind of showing them what they can be.
Mm,
Um, you know, just this starts the conversation. It's not just data and okay, here I am. You've really got to dive in, like Shannon and Katie. You've really got to really ask hard questions. You may have to change some different things that you're doing in a traditional sense. Don't throw it all out, but start
mm,
attaching those things. And honestly, like I do like to start small. We've always said start small, but if you've never done anything like this, I it's so cool. Like if you can read what Allie and I are doing while Abby is going through this, it's like your whole mindset is just kind of blown because you're really seeing somebody, and think about if there's somebody like you care about and or your students or a class or something like that. You will see, you can show them a path that they've never probably knew existed. And maybe they don't want to go that path, but at least you've exposed them to it and said, all right, well, here's something you can, and people do, this whole tool is not, again, a crutch, a fix for everything. Like we need humans to connect with people and to really help them understand who they are through adding the data into their real lives. And you can't do just data. Here's the data. So that was something that I mean, it's a human ed tech company. I think Edson kind of alluded to that. And I would really like challenge anybody and everybody just to kind of, number one, if you just want to see it, just take a look at episode 5. If you want to see what level of education you're on, if you're an educator, a teacher, I mean, Jason teaches, we both teach, and also like at the administrative level or at even a higher level, a community level, it's all in here. If you're a student, it's all in this series. So, you know, uh, the link is in the our notes, but it's youscience.com/disrupt education dash podcast. That's a long one to say, but it's in there. And click on it and dive in. I mean, I think that's really how we disrupt education. Boy, we brought a lot of meaning into what we're doing here, right, Ellie?
More than I think any other series that we've done. And it ties into so many other series that we've done. Like I can see the spider web. And I just think for us, like when students see their skills, their aptitudes clearly, I mean, they just start to believe differently about themselves. And they they just they stop drifting, or they stop disengaging, and they start designing their futures. And I think it's just such a beautiful way to do that. And how aptitude can create opportunity in ways that you and I have no idea what the ripple effect in the spider web is going to have. And like when Shannon said this is legacy work, I was like, this YouScience is legacy work, and those doing it is legacy work. And I'm just so thankful that we got to highlight such awesome work that's disrupting education, because it's like feels so good to have a podcast series around like everything that we talk about all the time.
Yeah. And that's really what this entire partnership has been about. It's been about educators and ed tech people and really getting together and helping everybody, educators, parents, communities, to stop asking kids, what do you want to be? What are you built to do? That's the where we switch those. And it's what we do in Disrupt Education, right? One learner, one insight, one purpose-driven step at a time. If you followed this series, I'm going to ask you guys to share it out, start a conversation in your district, reach out to YouScience. Just sit down with one student and ask them about their aptitudes. And if they don't know how to get them, take a look at that link in the notes, youscience.com/disrupt education #podcast. And I'm sure that you can find a lot of different ways there to really start moving and checking and seeing how people are really uncovering what they're built for. Want to thank YouScience for partnering with us. This has been an incredible journey. I mean, the hair standing up on the back of my neck is I am sad, but I'm happy we did it. Sad that it's ending. Every guest, they shared their story, the passion of Jason, Katie and Shannon, obviously Edson, who his vision is for the future of where this is going, was amazing, and just Abby for putting herself out there and going through the beginning of her YouScience journey. We're not just talking change here; we're making it happen. So, for Alli Dahl, I am Peter Hostrawser. Thank you to YouScience for partnering with us. We'll catch you next time on the Disrupt Education podcast. That's another episode of the Disrupt Education podcast, where we keep challenging the traditional systems and helping students connect learning to real life. Here's the truth. Many students leave high school with a diploma, but without direction. Readiness isn't just about grades and transcripts. It's about discovering who you are and connecting that to real opportunities. That's why Disrupt Education is proud to partner with YouScience, the platform that helps every student uncover their unique strengths, explore career pathways, and step confidently into the world beyond school. If you believe that every student deserves to be connected and ready for what's next, check out youscience.com/disrupt education-podcast. Because when education and purpose connect, students don't just graduate, they launch.